Good evening, and welcome to Bedtime Stories, a presentation of the Florida Gulf Coast chapter of Sisters in Crime. I'm Teresa Michael, president of the chapter and your host. Each weeknight during the Southwest Florida Reading Festival, you will hear a bedtime story from one of our Sisters in Crime authors. Before we get started, I'd first like to offer a big thank you to our festival hosts for providing Sisters in Crime with the opportunity to participate in the festival. The hardworking staff of the Lee County Library System has done an exceptional job organizing the festival. As a reader, author, and Sister in Crime member, I thank you. I also want to tell you a little bit about Sisters in Crime. Our organization is filled with people just like you and me who love mystery, murder, and mayhem. Sisters in Crime was founded in 1986 by 26 women mystery authors, among them Sarah Paretsky, Nancy Picard, and Charlotte McLeod. Its mission to support women mystery writers in the largely man's world of publishing. Back then, even the greatest of women writers struggled for equity in publishing contracts, marketing resources, book award nominations, and access to bookstores, libraries, and reviews. Now, 35 years later, crime writing is no longer a man's world. Women crime writers are thriving, and Sisters in Crime supports more than 4,200 members and 60 chapters worldwide. We are an inclusive, diverse group, bound together by the love of a good crime fiction read. I encourage you to join this truly unique community which shares your passion for mystery, thrillers, and suspense. Learn more about Sisters in Crime and the local chapter in your area on our national website at sistersincrime.org. And now, this is Bedtime Stories. Lisa Malice is a psychologist turned mystery writer. Keep your fingers crossed because Lisa's debut novel, a psychological thriller, is out on submission through an agent. In tonight's episode, Lisa reads her thriller, Dead On, where she presents the question, can a hitman effectively do his job and still stay true to his own moral code? The best sniper in the business is offered a job that will put him on Easy Street for life. Normally, he has no ethical problem getting paid by one scumbag to take out another. But when his old boss asks him to eliminate a political opponent, he's faced with a moral dilemma. With his target in the crosshairs, can he pull the trigger?
Thank you for joining me tonight for a reading of my short story, Dead On. You'll pull the trigger at an open-air event in New York 3 days from now. Very public. People around that bitch nearly every second. Dozens of people on the stage near the podium during her speech. Take her out early. I cringed at the deep, familiar voice as it bellowed over the small phone in my hand. The device had been sealed in plastic and left for me in the men's room of an old Beltway bar, hidden in the tank of the handicap John. The only number in the contacts list was another disposable phone. Such communication arrangements were SOP in my line of work, a precaution to keep calls anonymous, untraceable, leave the cops unable to make any connections between clients and contractors. You'll get one shot, that's it. Think that will be a problem? Anger washed over me at his words. It wasn't an unreasonable question. Most of my clients were nervous about my services, uncertain whether they should trust that I was as good as my reputation. So I often had to put their minds at ease. But coming from this jerk, the question was an insult. As an expert marksman himself, he knew firsthand I was the best of the best. I'd served under him. He trained me. I took out dozens of enemy combatants per his orders. After retiring my stripes, my semi-automatic M24 sniper rifle, and I followed him to a civilian posting. Life working security for him was good until it ended abruptly. A few party photos, somehow leaked to a freelance reporter, made the headlines across the country. The optics were bad. The press had a field day. These are the good guys? One headline asked. 3 of us identified in the photos couldn't be fired fast enough, even though we did our jobs. The photographer, whoever he was, didn't get any bare-butt snapshots of the big guy cavorting with the 3 exotic Colombian beauties I'd led into his hotel suite. Shielding his fat ass and other body parts from the public and the press was an unspoken part of our job. But instead of a pat on the back from my boss for a job well done, I got a swift boot to the butt. Had to pay my own way home on a commercial flight, too. I never forgave the big man nor my boss for the disgrace. Unemployed with no respectable prospects, I went into business for myself. It paid well enough that I could take any job or leave it. Morally, I didn't see a problem. I took out scum, kids contracted by their filth, who often got what they deserved too. What this guy wanted me to do now, an assassination of a political opponent, didn't fit that mold, but I thought I could handle it. The lucrative fee was too good to refuse, enough to free me from having to work this job or any other. For that matter, I'd finally be on Easy Street. I can hit the flea off the tip of a dog stick from 1,000 meters, I said. With her head in my crosshairs, she's as good as dead. Good. Cover your tracks. Leave nothing behind. The feds ID you somehow. You're on your own. My boss will do nothing to help you. Utter one word and you'll be dead before you can finish the sentence. Do I make myself clear? It was not an empty threat. His boss had the power and resources to order whatever dirty work he wanted done. The last thing I needed or wanted in retirement was to have a target on my back. When I say I'll do something, I will do it. Just fix things on your end. 10 mil in my bank account in 1 hour. Otherwise, there's no deal. The phone went silent on the other end. Is there a problem? I asked, holding back my annoyance with the man. We'd wrangled before on the subject of money. That had to be it. 10 mil was just the upfront money. A down payment. The bulk of my fee would be due once the target was pronounced dead. I still think you're overpriced for what you do. What's a guy like you going to do with that kind of dough anyways? I stifled a chuckle. I had a hunch that my old boss was jealous of my success, more specifically, the money I pulled in for working a very part-time job. His words proved me right. I ignored his stupid question and instead reasserted my worth, as I did during our initial negotiation. You walk away from this deal now, that's your prerogative, but you get what you pay for. This is a high-risk target we're talking about here. It has to be done with one shot. You said it yourself. If that first bullet misses the target, it's all over. The opportunity to take her out is gone. A cheaper, less skilled contractor might squeeze off a couple more rounds, hoping to finish the job, but that would just cause collateral damage. The wrong people shot. I let my words sink in for a moment, then continued. Is the client willing to risk that kind of disaster to keep a few bucks in a foreign bank account we both know is overflowing with dirty money? The man grunted, then hung up. I took that to be a no. I tossed the phone at the Potomac on my drive home. 60 minutes later, I checked my account online and smiled at the balance. The deal was sealed. With my bag packed, I headed for New York to case the venue and prepare to execute my part of the contract. 3 days later, perched at the window of an anonymous office building, one of dozens overlooking the Navy Pier, I had a clear shot to the target, a petite redhead standing behind a microphone on the deck of the USS Intrepid. I closed my eyes and pictured my goal. The woman lying in a pool of her own blood, dead from a bullet to her head. Something about the image felt wrong. I opened my eyes and found her again in the crosshairs of my telescopic sight, then put my finger on the trigger. Suddenly, a bead of sweat rolled down my cheek. My heart started racing. My trigger finger quivered. I jerked back from the window, pressed myself against the wall, and struggled to understand what was happening. I'd experienced a mild case of jitters only once, when taking aim at my first contracted target. I got over it quickly by remembering what the scum had done to deserve his fate. Prostituted out barely pubescent girls as party favors for filthy millionaires. I took that shot with a steady hand and never wavered again. Putting a bullet into the heads of other bad actors was just the job that had to be done, and I was the guy to do it. I closed my eyes and tried to remember what this woman had done to warrant her death. When I was first approached about the job, the thought about taking her out made me a little giddy. Personally, I couldn't stand the woman. I'd been around her enough in the past to find her difficult, demanding, and thoroughly unpleasant. Her politics were divisive. Her policies repulsive. She was a bitch, no doubt about it. But the bottom line, she'd done nothing so awful to deserve my bullet except stand in the way of my client's political ambitions. Could I live with her death on my conscience? Would 25 mil in my pocket for my retirement be enough to compensate me for abandoning my moral integrity? I wasn't sure. But the consequence of standing down and walking away wasn't pretty either. If I didn't take the shot, it'd be me in the crosshairs next. My client would no doubt put a hefty bounty on my head. Every contractor in the biz would be gunning for me. Was I willing to live my life on the run, looking anxiously over my shoulder, always prepared to kill rather than be killed? I took a long, deep breath and let it out, hoping to clear my head, at least enough to answer the questions burning inside me. but it didn't. Steeling myself for a difficult decision, I raised my rifle and stared down the barrel through the telescopic sight. As I scanned the stage, my gut instincts kicked in, showing me my path forward. I took careful aim. 2 shots later, it was all over. I slipped out of the city and left my country behind. 1 week later, I watched CNN's coverage of the state funeral from my hotel suite in Rio. I couldn't help but laugh at the comments from the last speaker, President Janine Rodriguez, as she delivered a tearful, heartfelt eulogy for her vice president. A true patriot, tireless defender of the poor, and a good friend who died from an errant sniper's bullet meant for me. The irony was thick as a brick, at least in my mind. The dead man had, after all, contracted the assassination of the woman speaking those words. And for the record, the assassination wasn't a mistake on my part. I shot her vice president dead on, put the other bullet in the head of the big guy's lead Secret Service agent, my old boss. Why? Well, it wasn't for the money. After all, I left 15 mil on the table. I didn't pull the trigger on them because they fired me from the best job I ever had, nor did I target them for being the bad actors in this scenario, or even to keep the big guy from putting a contract out on me. No, I took these 2 cretins out to maintain the integrity of my moral code, part of which requires me to continue to honor an oath I made long ago, to protect my president from all enemies, both foreign and domestic. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Tune in tomorrow when Dr. Joel Shulkin reads They Always Come When You're Asleep.